Hello everybody, it is I, Captain Oblivious Mist, and I am here today to do a video on the complete history of the RMS Lusitania, a massive ship, you could say, and it was the very first four-stacker that Britain had. But unfortunately she came to a very unfortunate end during the First World War, which we'll be looking at in this video. So, let's get on with it. As I've said 100 times, during the 1900s, competition of the North Atlantic was fierce, leading to the White Star constructing the Big Four and the Germans with their beloved Kaiser class of ships, which brought alarm to Cunard and the British government, as the White Star Line had recently been bought by the American company, the International Mercantile Marine Company, which was extremely alarming because the government was worried about not having enough ships in the event of war. Cunard noticed this and took advantage of the fears of the British government and proposed a class of 2 ships that could go up to 24 knots, which at this time was pretty fast. So the British government liked this, thus they gave Cunard a massive low-interest loan of £2.6 million, which is quite a lot of money, and was also to be paid over the course of 20 years. And that's not even counting the annual operating subsidy of 75 grand. But there was a catch. These ships would have to be easy to convert into an armed merchant cruiser in the event of a war. As well as this, these ships would have to stay under British ownership. And the names of these ships would be the RMS Mauretania and the subject of this video, the RMS Lusitania. She was originally going to be powered by 4 of the Parsons turbine engines that would give her a top speed of 25 knots. She was originally conceived with 3 funnels, but ultimately Cunard decided to give her a 4th funnel to help with the ventilation of the extra boilers. She would be the biggest ship in the world for a whopping 2 months, as the Mauretania was completed. But back to the Lusitania, as her interiors were breathtaking. For starters, she had an amazing veranda cafe that opened up at the stern, and the first class dining room, which was decorated in the, please forgive my pronunciation, Francois Butcher style. I guess you could say I butchered that name, which was miles brighter than the mahogany of what would become the Olympic class, and she had 2 floors in there. Very nice. The Georgian style of the first class lounge, making her look stunning. And as for her second class accommodations, which were confined to the stern, she had enough accommodations for 460 second class passengers. And though smaller, her second class dining room, with just 1 floor, was located lower down on the saloon deck. As for third class, it was located at the front of the ship and was surprisingly comfortable and spacious, and was in the bow, decorated in pine. Her keel was laid on the 17th of August 1904. On Clyde Bank. Her first rivet was hammered in by Lord Inverclyde, and she was nicknamed the Scottish Ship. Stupid nickname, and a stupid amount of money was spent revamping the shipyard to fit the Lusitania in the River Clyde. During her construction, Lord Inverclyde died, which helped push back the launch date of the Lusitania to the 7th of June 1906. And she was now to be launched by Mary Inverclyde, making her the biggest ship in the world, resulting in every website an article painfully pointing out the fact that the Adriatic was the only ship of her class thought to be the biggest ship in the world. That's gonna rub salt into the wound. Ouch. And upon completion in June of 1907, she had her engines tested about a month before her full tests. And during these tests, it was discovered that the Lusitania's stern had extreme vibrations, making her second-class accommodations uninhabitable. Thankfully, they was able to make a few brief changes to the second class by adding pillars that reduced the effect and would be helpful in her maiden voyage, which brings me to my next section. The Lusitania left for Queenstown in Ireland at 9 p.m. on the 7th of September 1907. She would then anchor at Roach's Point, and not too long after, another ship owned by the Cunard, the RMS Lucania, would soon appear behind the Lusitania and join her at Roach's Point. Turns out the Lusitania had passed the Lucania in the night, and then afterwards the Lusitania would leave to continue on to New York, where she would just be 30 minutes shy of the Kaiser Wilhelm the Große's speed record. But that didn't stop a crowd so big the whole New York City Police Department had to be called. What a start! But her second voyage was very interesting as well, as in that voyage she had finally taken the Kaiser Wilhelm speed record, which she kept until the RMS Mauretania took it from the Lucy. Siblings, am I right? Her career was amazing, especially in 1909, as from September to October the Lusitania was in New York for the Hudson-Fulton celebration, where she would be representing the most recent in the advances of marine technology. And during this celebration, Wilbur Wright flew a plane above the Lusitania and took a few photos of her from above. Although her career wasn't all sunshine and lollipops, as a few months later, in January of 1910, the Lusitania was on a voyage from Liverpool to New York. During this voyage, a massive wave came up towards the Lusitania and smacked her in a bridge. She survived, but the forecastle deck was heavily damaged, the bridge was moved backwards a few inches, and there's a permanent depression on the bow, or in this case mainly the bridge. Thankfully, everyone was fine, so she continued on to New York, but she was a few hours late due to the collision. If you want more on this incident though, I do recommend Ocean Liner Design's video on the subject. Anyway, back to my video, as there wasn't many incidents in her career, well, apart from the very obvious one, which brings me to my next part. In 1914, Europe was plunged into the First World War, and due to the agreement Cunard had made with the British government, Lusitania and Mauretania were requisitioned to be converted into armed merchant cruisers. But it didn't take the government too long to realise how useless they were as armed merchant cruisers, or as armed merchant cruisers were as a whole, and the both of them were sent back to Cunard for passenger service. But both remained on the AMC listings, and not too long after, her sister ship, the Mauretania, was laid up due to low passenger numbers. But the Lusitania was still popular, and remained so even in her end. On the 22nd of April in 1915, the German embassy in Washington, D.C. left a warning next to an advertisement for the Lusitania. Yet this didn't scare many people, as on the 1st of May she left New York with most of her passengers still on board. Interestingly, as she was getting ready to leave New York, she was filmed. This would prove to be some of the last footage ever recorded of the Lusitania, and during the recording she departed New York. This voyage was rather uneventful, apart from some fog. This was until the 7th though, as a German U-boat called the U-20 spotted the Lusitania, and the captain of the U-20 decided that there was no way they would hit the Lusitania, unless she turned towards them. And guess what the Lusitania did? Turned towards them, and if you got that, you get a gold star. But the reason why the Lusitania turned towards them though, was because she was sailing in a zigzag pattern, which was very common during this period of the war, to evade German U-boats. But in this case it didn't go to plan, and the U-boat fired off a torpedo. Hitting the bow, causing a massive explosion, followed by a second explosion caused by the cold water mixing with the warm boilers. And this would begin one of the worst disasters known to date, and with a matter of minutes her bow was submerged underwater, and not too long after, Lusitania's bridge was flooding, washing Captain Will Turner off the bridge as the water made its way up the decks. and in 20 minutes she left the surface with only 4 lifeboats being launched successfully. And when the Lusitania sunk, she took 1,197 people with her, leaving only 761 people out of her 1,959 people alive. This was a bloodbath, and this was horrific. Germany justified the sinking with the fact that the Lusitania was carrying war ammunitions, which was later confirmed. But in my eyes, this does not justify the hundreds of lives lost. In fact, it's nowhere near justifiable. Well, on the bright side, at least Cunard ended up with a new ship, the Berengaria. And even so, in death, the Lusitania helped the British war effort, as her sinking helped pull the US into the First World War. And loads of propaganda was made, and suddenly everybody wanted to avenge the fallen Lusitania. As for the wreck of the ship herself, she was rediscovered in 1935, and not too long after, her propellers were removed. One was melted down and another is on display today. Unfortunately though, due to the high amount of human interference, the Lusitania's wreck is now almost completely collapsed and is unrecognisable. And 100 years after the demise of the Lucy, the MS Queen Victoria went on a cruise around Cork in Ireland. But even with the aftermath, in my opinion, she is still the greatest casualty of the First World War. And no matter how much time passes, I hope we will never forget the great disaster, the sinking of this ship. Hello everybody, it is me again. Sorry if midway through the recording my nose suddenly sounded really blocked. That is because midway through the recording I caught a cold, a really bad one, and that I apologise if it's noticeable. Second of all, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This video has been in the works for a while now, so it's nice to finally get that done, as this video was originally meant to come out in August. But Aquitania took too long, so blame Aquitania. And I'd also just like to say my next few videos will be Ghosts of the Queen Mary, RMMV Oceanic, there'll be a complete history on that, and as well as this, the complete history of the Seadric. Now, that's in no particular order, but just no particular order there. Just hope to get those videos done and out, as the intro for these videos have been recorded, and most of the editing has been done on Ghosts of the Queen Mary. But yeah, apart from that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.